Well, Nick Boskovich is on the podcast today. He is the CEO and founder of High Vibe Superfood Juiceries in Chicago. And Nick, thank you for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Do you mind giving everyone a little intro just about you and your business, and we can kind of roll from there?
Yeah, so I founded High Vibe. We're an organic superfood juicery in Chicago. We opened our first location, which is our flagship, on Kinsey in River North in late 2014. We've now opened up our third, although it's just we only have 2 locations right now, but our what would be our third retail location in West Lakeview, which is, for those not familiar with Chicago, it's like, north side, just west of like Wrigley Field area. It's been quite the journey. I'm not a manager, so to speak. I've learned the hard way.
Yeah.
I'm very much, this was a business that was born out of passion. I think I've invested a lot over the last several years into really bettering my business acumen and helping to like clarify like the vision for growth in this business. It's a really unique space. We're dealing with, our products are, very short shelf life. It's a lot of projecting and, as far as like how much to produce,
right.
And it's constantly adapting. It's a beast of a small business. And so I've went through Tony Robbins. I've read a lot of like business and kind of, I don't know, self-help. I don't know if that's the word.
Sure.
But
yeah.
basically like trying to dig into like me, like how I'm wired, what, why I'm great at some things and really miserable and suck at other things. And what I've come to learn, thanks to Mr. Tony Robbins' business mastery, like day 1, hour 1, is that I'm what one would call like a visionary mind and more of an artist of what I do. Then, secondary would be entrepreneur, and a very, very last would be manager. So,
got it. Okay.
So yes, so it's there's a lot of things to manage, a lot of inventory, a lot of ingredient purveyors. I'm really driven by quality. I'm quality obsessed, I guess you could say, and that translates really well for our guests, customers. But like, that's really like, I love that part, like sourcing, like, there was at one point we had like 80 different vendors, and a lot of them would be like single ingredient. And, but that's why I'm in this. I love like the hunt for like finding the best of the best, and like just trying to make it work financially and, like inventory, like logistics wise, to like, to have that be our purveyor.
Got it. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. How did you, the first question I had was, I can tell you're very motivated to have high quality, but how did you what did you do before that? And how did you come up with the idea of High Vibe? And, it's a big difference between like wanting to get into that business and like actually launching a retail location.
Yeah, well, my background was like nothing really related as far as like professional. I was kind of, my path was, my original path out of college was law school. I went to school in Arizona, Northern Arizona. Then I finished at Arizona State. I was a criminal justice pre-law emphasis major, just because that was like the only classes that I really could pay attention to.
Okay.
I'm sure I'm undiagnosed ADD for sure. And so the law always intrigued me. I think like it really boiled down to like knowing my rights, like what, I think that's what kept my interest. But came back to Chicago after I graduated, and ironworking is certainly family business. I've been a union ironworker since since I was 17. My dad and a lot of my family were involved with the ironworkers union in Chicago. My dad was a official president for, I don't know, probably like 25 years or so.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. I always did that on my breaks, like whether it be summer break or Christmas break. And it was great. It was like real work, man's work, dangerous, high paying though.
Okay.
And yeah, so that was like,
So
but
is that
because it
for
was
someone who
kind of
doesn't know a
like
ton about
forced.
that? Is that like when you were building like skyscrapers and stuff downtown, were you the one laying the
Yeah,
iron and like
yeah.
actually building the
Some
frame?
there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of different jobs that fall within the realm of structural ironwork. But my first job, for example, after finishing college at what is paradise of Arizona State University
Oh
was
yeah, definitely.
I graduated in December, and my first job back, like I think I started on like January 2nd or 3rd. I was working on the Chicago Skyway project,
Oh
and I
cool.
was on the barge gang. So the team that I was working with, we were working off of JLG lifts that off of a barge. So literally a tugboat would come, hook up to our barge, pull us out into the middle of the river, and we were changing out iron that way up that is way up above the river on the Chicago Skyway. Like what would it be, just south of like that the really expensive toll, like the one
Oh,
that's
I do
like
know what you're talking
I don't know,
about.
it's
Yeah.
like $5 or $6 now. Yeah. It was January and it was frigid and we were working 610 712s. It was like that, but like making great money. And it was like it's like very manly industry to be in. And
Right.
so I was doing that to basically like pay off debt that I would rack up every year in college. It was kind of like my cycle. I'd rack up credit card debt while I was there, come home, iron work a ton, pay it all off, go back to school, start the same cycle. So I was doing that and prepping for the LSAT, and then I was going to apply to law school. And I went through the LSAT. I did pretty well on the test. I was pretty good on the test. But I wasn't really sure that was the path I wanted to pursue. Someone suggested that I take a paralegal certification course through Roosevelt downtown. I did that. And after finishing it, I realized that wasn't really what I wanted to pursue.
Okay.
So then I was kind of looking for what do I want to pursue? And commercial real estate really intrigued me. So I got into that. I worked as a predominantly tenant rep. I represented tenants in their office leases downtown.
Got
So
it.
I began doing that. I did that for I don't know, maybe like a few years, 3-4 years, and I liked a lot of the job, like a lot of the parts of the job that were like the hunt, the finding, thinking outside the box. I love to learn about my client's business, what they were looking for, where they were at, and maybe try to present ideas that they weren't really considering, or different avenues. Really like that, but I hated working in an office. Wasn't really. I felt like that was not where I was meant to be. Felt kind of like a caged animal.
Okay. Yeah. You either like it or you don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, right. And that industry, it's cutthroat. You got to worry about your boss ripping you off. So as I was falling out of love with that, I started picking up more ironworking gigs on the side, and I was juggling the two, basically doing just enough of each to get by,
Okay.
and not really feeling fulfilled, or I was, definitely not feeling like I was doing what I wanted to be doing, or what I was called to do. And in the meantime, I think about 2008, I was working in the real estate office. I was, doing a little iron work, and I would always partner up with a cousin of mine. My cousin Johnny is very health focused. He's the most disciplined guy I've probably ever met. And
Okay. Yeah.
we were always partnered up. So we'd go to Whole Foods and get lunch, or if we were working nights, dinner, or whatever. But on our breaks, that's where we would go to eat. And I fell in love. It was this new mecca of food. And I've always been a foodie, and I've always been into health, healthy eating and cooking too. And I just I was making good money, and I was investing money. I had a stock, I had an investment account. It was 2008 though, so it was brutal. Everything was tanking.
Yeah.
And
Wrong direction.
yeah, and I decided to sell everything and put it all in Whole Foods stock. And my friend, who was my broker, was like, no way, that's a luxury item. You can't invest in that. This is a recession, you know? And I was like, listen, man, I'm telling you, like, you can't go there and then go back to Jewel or Dominic's. Like,
Yeah,
this
true.
is it. Like, I'm like, to me, this is the future. It's bright. It's totally different experience. It's bright. It's, you know, healthy foods that are, you know, real and living, and just a different level of vibrancy. So I did that. Fortunately, it saved all the other bad moves I was making investment wise. And my cousin also, like, as I was getting into the healthy eating with him, like really like kind of like deep diving into it, he suggested that I try like a juice fast. So I bought a juicer. a Breville juicer, like everybody had, or anybody that had a juicer, that was one. And I started making juice at home, and really turned into a juice junkie. Like, just the way it made me feel. You know, I was single. I was in my, I guess, like late 20s, and I was partying, you know, much probably more than I should have been. But the way the green juice would fix the damage was like magic.
It was like a magic cure.
Yeah, it really was. Like I became like really instantly like a big believer in the benefits of it. So at that same time, that's when that movie Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead had come out.
Yes.
And I don't know if you're familiar with that. It was a documentary.
I've seen it. Yeah. It's been a little while, but I've seen it.
Yeah. And it was like, I mean, the guy, it's pretty simple concept. This guy, it's interesting though. A guy from Australia had a host of health conditions. He was taking, 30 different medications a day or something crazy. And he decided to hire a film crew or a video crew and follow him as he drove across the United States, stopping in all these different small town USA truck stops and things, talking to people. And he was doing only juice for these 30 days. And you see his whole body, his health, like everything transformed before your eyes. So I think that really kicked off the juice industry, like, as we know it. Like, it really sparked some interest there. And at that time I was, I've got a lot of buddies on the West Coast, so I would go visit them, and juicing was already a part of my routine. So I would seek out, what's the best juice spot in town, looking it up on Yelp. And in the morning I would always go and, check out what's the best spot in town. And I was really just really intrigued by the space. Every one of these places was unique. They were kind of like doing their own thing. Whatever the founder's vision was, that's what they were doing. The like bottled cold pressed juice and then assembling cleanse packages, that was brand new. That was really intriguing and different to me. There was no one in Chicago doing anything like that. And I found over time, like I was just a fan of that, of these products. And over time though, like, I don't know if it was a year or so, but it just got the wheels turned, because I'd come back home and there was like one local juice shop that I would go to, and it was all right. It wasn't organic. It was still really expensive. And, but it was better than like making it in my kitchen every day. Right.
Yeah.
So
got it. It was convenient.
as this was going on, I was just like, I found myself like critiquing these different juiceries that I was visiting in like other cities. And, it was like the branding, I was just thinking like, oh, I would do the branding different. Like, they were all either like farmhouse theme or very like yoga or like hippy dippy kind of theme. And that's not what their clientele looked like. And it's certainly not what I'm like. So I just thought like doing like a little bit more, taking the branding a different way. And then I also saw that they were almost all exclusively like raw vegan. And I thought that was like a little bit of a miss too, because that wasn't what most of their clientele was. Like, I think what their clientele all had in common was that they wanted to look and feel their best. That's why they were investing in these products, not because they were really trying to fit in like this raw vegan dogmatic box, right? It was about the results.
Yeah.
So it just got the wheels turning. I come back home and it's back to me, my juicer in my kitchen, and was just thinking like, I should do this. Like, I feel like I could do this as good or better than anyone. So that's how it started. That's how it started.
That's such a cool, it's cool. I think, especially if you can start a business like that, where you're just a big fan and you're really into the product. I mean, that's cool in itself. Did you I'm assuming like to go from like critiquing and being a big fan to actually like buying a retail location or renting a retail location, was that like a big bridge to gap, as far as like, I've never done that, but like I would think in downtown Chicago to find like a real, like an actual physical location, and going from what you were doing to that would be a big undertaking and I would think a big financial investment to like go from 0 to 1. How was that process for you?
Yeah, it was. But the search really fell into my wheelhouse because I was in commercial real estate. I loved the negotiation process.
Oh, true. Yeah.
I love that hunt for the
Yeah.
perfect spot. So I think what worked out really well was that I didn't have there's no one else involved. I didn't have investors. I didn't have partners. So it was all on my time. So I took a really passive approach to it. I was just like passively looking for the right spot. And when I found it, which was that spot on Kinsey, it was like it took a lot of, I guess a lot of vision to
Yeah.
it was previously an enterprise rental car office, and we had to
Oh,
turn
that's
that into a
funny.
juice lab. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I think that worked out well because I wasn't like forced into a deal. I didn't have like a clock ticking on me. I was fine, like doing what I was doing, getting by, and
But
so I took my time finding it.
while you were looking, were you like on the back end trying to design like the juices and the formulas, or yeah, how did
No,
all that roll together?
no, actually, and that's what everyone kind of like would assume that would be the process. But actually, like the menu was actually the very last thing that I did, and I
Oh,
think because that's what comes easiest to me. That's what's the most fun for me.
yeah,
So I think I was like focused on like all these things that were like, intimidating or this foreign territory that I needed to like
sure.
figure out. So I focused on all of that, um, the name, like incorporating like the whole build out process. Like I had negotiated plenty of leases, but I'd never like saw a project through from like, getting an architect, getting bids from contractors, then essentially micromanaging the project because I learned the hard way. You get what you pay for when you're hiring a general contractor.
Oh,
So,
okay, yeah, right.
that was a rough process. But yeah, and like, I mean, really I'd say the most challenging part of it was like figuring out the layout for the actual space because this was like such a brand new industry. And I mean, it still is such a niche,
Yeah, it seems like it.
business that there's no like how to build a juice company. There's no book on that. There's no one like guiding that. There was no one to like tap like, hey, I'm looking to build a juice kitchen. Like, what does that look like? There really
Yeah,
wasn't. So I had to do some crazy recon. I had to go to these other juice companies and really just like study them. Like go to like I'd travel to different juice companies. L.A., Miami. There was one in Miami that I took a lot of inspiration from, and like, I mean, it's funny now. I mean, it was funny then, but I mean, this juice company. It's no longer open, but it was called Hugo Fresh, and I got a lot of inspiration from them. Like not specifically for mine, but just like their approach is really unique. Like the dude who founded it, this guy Matt Sherman, he did his own thing. Like the branding, they were like Spanglish, so
oh,
all
okay,
their like
yeah,
it's Miami, so a lot of Latin American influence, Cuban, Puerto Rican, and so like a lot of their products were, they like Spanglish named, like Spanish and English kind of meshed together. Um, Really wild, loud spaces, as far as like the decor,
yeah,
and they were the first, I believe, that started that moved to this like central commissary and not just like having like each location produce their juice. They built out a big commissary that would then supply all these retail locations, and they grew really fast. They were super successful, and so I like literally looked up like where their commissary was. Me and a buddy of mine, he was kind of like stuck along for the ride. We
okay.
took a trip to Miami, and
Not the worst
I
place
like
to go
went in.
travel.
No, and I went in there with my phone and was video recording and like kind of just like trespassed. I just like
Oh, that's
went
funny.
back there. and like just was shooting video, taking pictures, because I had no idea like what do the sinks look like? What do the refrigerators look like? Where do the press go? Like what equipment do I need? So I was just trying to get a visual of what I was trying to build because I
Oh,
really didn't know
wow.
where to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like funny memories back, but like there was, I don't know how else I could have done it, you know?
Yeah. So you just kind of jumped in and did it, it sounds like, and just kind of figured it out
Yeah.
as you went. Did you have like a long runway financially to do that?
No, not really. I mean, I had I had everything, every penny, and every cent that was in my name, and every penny of credit that I had. I had a lot of credit cards, so
You're,
thankfully
yeah.
we were able to get through that. But it took a lot more money than I had budgeted. But here's the thing: like I don't come from a business background. I didn't go to business school. Like I didn't even have a business plan, you know?
Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um so I was just like, I knew I needed to get this thing rolling and making money before, before the bank ran dry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And so since it's a physical location, you know, I've been by the one that you have on Kinsey. Has COVID been a big impact this year, just to like the foot traffic in general that's coming in? And have you guys had to pivot at all?
yeah, that's an understatement. It's been decimated.
I'm sure.
Like I've, I think we're probably serving uh, in store like maybe 30% or
Oh,
less,
wow.
25-30% of what we were doing, prior to the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's really forced us to pivot and adapt, and not, like I recognize that we needed to kind of get like our tech upgraded and accessibility for our clientele or our target clientele, to make the products more readily available to
Okay.
like a larger area.
Sure.
And but I would have never, I don't think we would have ever put the level of attention and resources into it that we had to do this year. So, you know, it sounds kind of cliche or cheesy, but like for a very long time this year, like it felt like this was happening for us and not to us.
Oh,
Like
okay.
our merchandise mart location was our merchandise mart location was our second spot, and we had a 3-year lease there. It was due to expire at the end of March. That's why we had
That's some
begun
timing.
construction on. Yeah, tell me about it.
Wow.
And like
Holy
talk about
cow.
happening for us, right?
Yeah.
So we were forced to close that shop 2 weeks earlier than we planned. That's it. So that happened, and it was like, it was just it really shifted our focus to Kinsey, all hands on deck, like a staff that had been separated in the mart. Like even though Kinsey always performed better than the mart, um, because the mart, like that's where we were doing all of our production. It was our commissary,
Yeah.
essentially,
Okay.
and I used um, that food hall as my like co-working space, essentially, like a lot. So it was like that always like was like we were always more present there than we were at Kinsey. And it oops, sorry about that. And it didn't it we didn't want it to be that way. So when the mart shut down and we were forced to close that location, like it was like, okay, great, all hands on deck right now, focused on Kinsey. We're going to start delivering to everybody, because a lot of our clientele we found had like left the city to go stay with like family,
Yeah.
right? And then when that happened, we also started, like when we were really pushing this, like pushing that we were going to deliver to this like radius around Chicago, which was very not, it was like informal. We didn't have like a set radius. I was just like, we're just going to deliver to everybody unless it's like insane, like we're just going to make it happen. And we ended up really connecting with clientele that had maybe moved away over the last 6 years, maybe started a family, moved to Hinsdale. I was thinking Hinsdale because that was like we found like we had a high concentration of support coming from that like
Oh,
western
that's cool.
suburb area.
Yeah.
But um, but we were forced to do that, and it was like we didn't have a system for taking orders like that. So it was like the customers would call in. We would write the orders down, take their credit card number over the phone
Oh,
to
wow.
complete the transaction, writing down their address. And my team really came together. It was like everybody just like, I mean, it was like magic. It really was like the way it all worked out. Like Presley, he's like an IT operations wizard. He built an internal app for us to manage our delivery system, like over a weekend.
That's badass.
Didn't even like, yeah, it wasn't even like a topic, and he just did it. And he's like, like on Monday, he's like, hey, so I whipped this up over the weekend. I was like, holy shit. Like it was, I mean, it's like all the logistics is linked to Google Maps. We've got our deliveries, cleanses, all of our clientele, like database. Like it was awesome.
Wow.
And then I'm like, okay, well now the next step, dude, we need like an e-commerce site. Like the website's kind of always been annoying to me because there was always all this fluff. We'd hire like these, like marketing agencies, and they'd help us like put it together. And it was like pretty pictures and a lot of fluffy copy that like I didn't think like anyone really cared about. But it wasn't a place to buy. And that's what I was like, out with Preston, like, okay, here's the deal. Forget the fluff. I'm not trying to write a bunch of copy that no one really cares about. Like, let's make our website what it should be, a place to buy, e-commerce. So he put together the Shopify site. That took a long time.
Yeah, those do take a long time.
But now,
right.
Yeah, and again, he certainly does it right. And then now we're already on our. We launched the first version in August, and we just relaunched, made some upgrades just in the last few weeks. So
exciting.
It's yeah, and like that's been the key to our, I guess, surviving this year, because those sales that we're delivering, all over Chicagoland have made up for that lack of foot traffic.
Oh, I bet. So yeah, that's great. I mean, it's cool to see that you guys were able to pivot and figure out a way to handle, COVID, because I think a lot of people are either doing that and pivoting and surviving, or not pivoting and potentially not surviving, unfortunately. But that's great to see. Well, good for you guys.
Thanks.
I think this is a cool concept. I think a lot of people that listen to this will definitely resonate with the type of product you sell. What advice would you have for people who, want to get into business in general, and then specifically people who want to get like a physical location, like a retail type business? Do you have just one major piece of advice you'd like to give the listeners that you've learned?
Well, I don't think I would advise entering the physical retail space right now. There's
it could be like your Whole Foods thing, though. You're investing.
I mean, the challenges are immense, and I, unfortunately, I think like the pain has just begun as far as like, the number of small businesses that are going out.
Yeah.
But I mean, but in this space, like I think like being self-aware of what you're good at and what you're the best man or woman for the job, to own that. Don't waste your time outsourcing that or trying to train somebody else to do what you're the best guy for, because they're never going to live up to your expectations, and you're going to spend a ton of time trying to get them there. And the other thing is like, I mean, having like a passion and pride for the business that you're pursuing, because that's the only way this goes. Like your business is not going to stick around if you're not all in yourself, so
Got it.
I think like those two things, like being self-aware and like beyond like owning your role, recognize your weaknesses and hire accordingly. Like finding the right people to fill your voids is essential.
Okay. Got it. No, love that. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. The last question I wanted to ask you real quick was, the one thing I love to ask every founder I have on here is, being a founder has to be overwhelming when it comes to like just things you want to do, things you wake up and have to do. Plus you're a husband and you have kids. There's a million things going on. How do you organize your life, setting goals, and then even like daily tasks? Are you like a pen and paper kind of guy? Are you doing apps on your phone? Like, how do you organize everything?
Oh man. Well, like I mean, it's really my biggest weakness, I would say, is organization. It's just not how I'm wired. I do much better with written lists, for sure. There's something about like physically holding it, writing it out, and then checking it off that feels way better than clicking a checkbox on your notes on your phone. And prioritizing, there's always a million things, okay, like literally dozens of tasks or projects, that you could break down, that you're pursuing at a time. And I guess like keeping that list prioritized is what's the most important right now, what's going to give us, what's going to have the greatest impact and require, what's the easiest things to check off to, so like prioritizing according to kind of like those different, those different metrics. Yeah, I mean, and if you're not an organized guy like me, then make sure you surround yourself with a bunch of people that are.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. That's great. Perfect. Yeah. Well, awesome. Nick, that was the last major question I had. It was a pleasure having you on. I think we could definitely do another one of these and go down a rabbit hole of a lot more concepts and a lot more different topics, but I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, likewise. And sorry again for the technical difficulties. I delayed it and made this, shorter than I think we both intended, but I appreciate the interest.
No, it's funny. I think this year it's been everyone's figuring out Zoom, and there's technical difficulties that we're not used to all dealing with, but you're obviously we're in the same town. So hopefully what I'm trying to do next soon in the new year is a physical like studio setup. So it'd be cool to have you on in person at some point. It'd be fun.
Nice. I actually might have, we might be able to work together on that actually.
Cool.
I'm starting my own show actually in the next couple of weeks.
Let's talk about that. I'd love to hear about it.
The Bosco show. I've got a vacant 2-bedroom apartment that I'm going to turn into a podcast studio. So
love it.
Let's chat.
Awesome. That sounds fantastic. Cool, man.
Yeah, man.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Nick. I appreciate it. I will link all of the stuff to, the show notes. Is there anything you want to just say before we get off as far as like how people can get involved with High Vibe and you?
Yeah, man. Follow on Instagram. Definitely give us a follow. It's at High Vibe Shy, HIVIBECHI. My personal Instagram is the Bosco Show. That's BOSKO. And I mean, we truly are what drives us is to provide the ultimate day fuel that's going to help you to look, feel, and perform at your very best. All organic. We've got an excellent team of very high integrity people. Support small business while you still can.
Absolutely. Love that, Nick. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we'll definitely do this again.
Thanks, Shane.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Have a good one.